The top stories from ABC News. The Prime Minister will announce that Australian Airforce planes will carry weapons into Iraq to help Kurdish fighters battle Islamic State militants. Tony Abbott will reveal the details of Australia's involvement today as part of a multinational effort. It's believed a C-130 Hercules and C-17 Globemaster aircraft based in Dubai will be used to fly munitions and arms into the country's north to help Iraqis in the fight against the Islamic State. The first mission could take place within days. Ukraine's president says his country is close to a point of no return and full-scale war. Petro Poroshenko was speaking in Brussels, where he said a meeting of EU leaders had agreed to prepare more sanctions against Russia. Mr. Poroshenko says the sanctions would be implemented depending on the success of a proposed peace plan. Investigations are continuing into the cause of a fatal tree lopping accident at Logan, south of Brisbane. A 63-year-old man was killed and a woman in her 40s was injured when a falling branch struck the pair at a house yesterday. And Richmond will play in consecutive AFL finals for the first time in 40 years after completing an amazing feat. The Tigers grabbed the last finals berth after beating Sydney by 3 points. It was their 9th straight win. Now let's have a look at the front pages of Sunday's newspapers.
School canteens in New South Wales are flouting a 2007 ban on sugary beverages, with many still stocking soft drinks, iced teas and sports drinks. The Sun Herald writes that canteens are continuing to sell unhealthy foods in a bid to boost school coffers. It comes as the proportion of overweight or obese children in the state has increased by 21% in the last 5 years.
In Victoria, parents will have the power to assess how principals perform, and school councils will be granted the authority to shape the way classrooms are run under a controversial proposed shake-up of the education system. The Sunday Age has those details.
Hobart is mourning the loss of its only female mayor, Doone Kennedy, who has died at the age of 87. Mrs Kennedy served on the Hobart City Council for 17 years, including a decade as mayor. She's pictured on the cover of today's Sunday Tasmanian.
Queensland's Sunday Mail writes that a former Brisbane finance worker has joined Islamic State fighters in Syria after being brainwashed by a radical Australian sheikh.
Finals fever. It's all about the AFL in South Australia's Sunday Mail. Adelaide Oval will host its first AFL final when Port Adelaide meets Richmond in a do-or-die elimination clash next Sunday.
And not to be outdone, in Victoria we have this on the cover of the Sunday Herald Sun. Yellow and black and finals bound is the caption.
And Sydney's Daily Telegraph is reporting on the government's plan to drop guns and munitions into Iraq to help Kurdish fighters overcome Islamic State militants in the country's north.
Now let's first check the weather in the capitals. Partly cloudy in Brisbane, a possible morning shower for Sydney, morning fog and frost for Canberra, mostly sunny in Melbourne. Cloud increasing in Hobart. Adelaide, a late shower. Perth, showers clearing. And for Darwin, a sunny day.
The top stories from ABC News. Australian Airforce planes will carry weapons into Iraq to help Kurdish fighters battle Islamic State militants. The Prime Minister, Tony Abbott, has announced the details of Australia's involvement as part of a multinational effort. It's believed C-130 Hercules and C-17 Globemaster aircraft based in Dubai will be used to fly munitions and arms into the country's north to help Iraqis in the fight against the IS. The first mission could take place within days.
Ukraine's president says his country is close to a point of no return and full-scale war. Petro Poroshenko was speaking in Brussels, where he said a meeting of EU leaders had agreed to prepare more sanctions against Russia. Mr. Poroshenko says the sanctions would be implemented depending on the success of a proposed peace plan. He says Ukraine is a victim of military aggression and terror.
The army of the Southern African Kingdom, Lesotho, has denied staging a coup d'etat despite the country's Prime Minister fleeing to South Africa. According to residents, the diplomats, army units occupied police headquarters and surrounded the Prime Minister's residence early Saturday morning. Prime Minister Tanabe says he fled to South Africa as he feared for his life.
Nearly 3 dozen UN peacekeepers from the Philippines who were trapped by Syrian rebel fighters in the Golan Heights have been successfully rescued amid a firefight. The UN has nearly 1,200 troops from 6 countries that monitor the line between the Israeli-occupied area and Syrian-held area of the Golan Heights. The al-Qaeda-linked rebel group, the al-Nusra Front, is believed to have been involved in the attack. Another 44 Fijian peacekeepers remain detained by militants.
Afghan officials say more than 24 people have been killed and many others injured in a twin suicide bomb attack in the eastern city of Jalalabad. A spokesperson for the provincial governor says a truck and a smaller car, both loaded with explosives, were driven into the compound and detonated. The Taliban has claimed responsibility for the attack.
To news at home, and police are looking for a man who fled the scene of a fatal crash at Brighton in Melbourne South this morning. A car ran into the rear of a taxi at an intersection at about 1 o'clock. The taxi driver, aged in his 60s, was behind the second vehicle when another car collided with it, crushing him between the two vehicles. He died at the scene. The driver of the third car is yet to be found.
Investigations are continuing into the cause of a fatal tree lopping accident at Logan, south of Brisbane. A 63-year-old man was killed and a woman in her 40s was injured when a falling branch struck the pair at a house in Munrooban yesterday.
A woman has been charged over a security scare that led to the evacuation of shops in Melbourne's Bourke Street for 2 hours yesterday afternoon. A 39-year-old Collingwood woman was arrested around 1 o'clock this morning. She's been charged with causing a hoax and has been remanded in custody to appear in the Melbourne Magistrates Court today.